Doubt was creeping into her mind like a spider crawling on a wall. She remembered the feeling of hunger from the night they had kissed. It was both unfamiliar and utterly alien, like an instinct, an urge she hadn't felt for a long time. A shiver ran down her spine at the memory. She's avoiding me, isn't she? She hadn't seen Catherine for a few days since that night, probably. If it's been a few days, almost definitely at this point. She'd been spending a lot of her time alone, locked away in her room. Whenever Rosa saw her in the chateau, she would excuse herself and leave. Rosa never got the courage to push the issue. That means you're avoiding her. Hang on a second. You don't get to play the martyr whilst doing that. But days had passed, and Catherine's behaviour began to worry her even more. Both of these are still bad options. She is selfish just like everyone else. We'd be agreeing with, inverted commas, mother. That's a terrifying thing. She's probably repulsed by you. That leaves most open for Catherine to be like, oh no, I am not repulsed by you, no. So yeah, let's click on that one. What did you expect? After what you did to her, you little monster, of course she will avoid you like the plague. No matter, she's never going to love you more, love you like mother does. Like all of the others, she's going to leave you in the end, and then you're all alone. Only mother will stay with you forever and love you, so be a good child and listen to what I tell you. Rosa bit her lower lip. This was all her fault, wasn't it? She needed to make it right. If Rosa talked to her properly, she was sure they would come to an understanding. What understanding would that be? We're both a bit lesbian? She had to explain to her. What exactly? They had both been drunk and the kiss didn't mean anything. Her stomach churned at this thought. In the end, it didn't matter what Rosa wanted. Catherine obviously regretted what had happened. She didn't want to lose her friend because of too much wine. Rosa gently knocked on Catherine's door. Catherine, may I come in? She's going to be dead, isn't she? Please, Catherine, I'm sorry for the mess, but can we talk? Rosa waited for an answer. None came. Rosa turned the handle slowly and entered. Dead. What did I tell you? Dead. Even that eerie music in the background. The music in this game is so quiet. I have to turn it up post-recording like every time. She looks like dead to me. Usually, Catherine's room was brightly lit. The windows let in a fresh breeze, often carrying the sweet smell of flowers in spring. Right now, however, the curtains were drawn closed. The few candles burning on a desk weren't enough to banish the darkness completely. Not dead. Just a bit weird. The air hung heavy in the room. That's, I imagine, not the only thing that hung heavy in the room. Look at this fucking place. Catherine didn't turn around when the door opened. She just stood there, unmoving, in front of a wall. The sounds of something scratching along a rough surface filled the air. Rosa felt a shiver run down her spine at this sound, and her muscles tensed instinctively. She approached Catherine slowly and apprehensively. When she came closer, she could hear that Catherine was whispering the same few words over and over again, apparently scratching at the wall. This is what crazy people do? Don't know how to tell her this. He loves me. He loves me not. Catherine giggled. He loves me. He loves me not. Catherine, are you alright? Does she look alright? Does she really look alright? You're doing the teacher's thing at the moment, aren't you? Where you could walk over to a teacher and your finger could just be like hanging off, kept on by one solitary piece of small flesh, and they'll be like, are you alright? My fingers fall off my fucking knuckle. Ugh. Rosa stepped next to Catherine and peered at her outstretched hand. It's going to be a bloody hand. In the dim light, it took a moment for her to make sense of what she saw. Yeah, it's a bloody hand. Catherine was scratching at the wall. The damage she had done to the wall was nothing compared to what she'd done to her fingers. They were dripping with blood from where her skin was cracked and peeled back. Cath? Oh my god, Catherine, stop! Rosa's gut twisted horribly. Her eyes are not all there. Just look at that, Rosa. She grabbed Catherine's shoulder to turn her around away from the wall. She blinked a couple of times before finally reacting to Rosa's presence. Tears welled up in Catherine's bloodshot eyes at the sight of her friend spilling over her pale cheeks and chapped lips. She held on tightly to Rosa and started sobbing uncontrollably. "Cat, what's going on? Why are you hurting yourself?" Catherine tried to pull herself together as best as she could, wiping her nose on the sleeve of her bloody dress. It was heart-wrenching to look at the mess that her friend had become. "Oh, Rosa, you need to help me. You need to protect me from him. Don't let him touch me." "Who?" "Let him what? Why do you need me to protect you?" Suddenly, Catherine shushed her, a finger to her lips and with a scared expression on her face. She leaned an ear towards the door and listened intensely for a moment. He's here? The scared expression turned into manic and frightening glee. "I think he's coming." "Guillem, honey. Guillem, I love you." After yelling the last words, Catherine started sobbing again, with more tears streaming down her face. Before Rosa could try to console her, however, her sobs faded into hysterical laughter. It barely left time for her to gasp for breath. "Oh, Guillem, I love the way you pull me close to hug me, and how kind you are to everyone you meet, and your eyes. What's going on here?" Guillem stood in the door, frowning. His eyes wandered across the room and caught sight of Catherine. His face froze in shock. Catherine stared wide-eyed for a second, then she snarled at him like a ferocious animal. "You bastard! Get out of my room! Get lost!" She stormed over to the desk and grabbed a letter opener from the table. With this weapon in a firm grip and malice in her eyes, she rushed to Guillem. "Don't you dare show your face to me!" "Catherine, no!" The knife plunged into Guillem's arm. Blood quickly stained his sleeve red. But Catherine only recoiled to strike back, no hint of stopping. "Oh my God! Catherine!" They wrestled for a moment until Guillem was able to grab Catherine's hand. She dropped the letter opener and slumped to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Rosa quickly picked up the blade and stepped out of reach. When she turned around again, Guillem had already pulled Catherine into a tight embrace. Between her sobs and hiccups, Rosa could hear her apologizing. "Oh God, I'm so sorry, Guillem. What? I'm so sorry. Do you love me? Please, Guillem, do you love me?" She repeated the question over and over again, no matter how many times Guillem reassured her. It was probably a good idea to find something to calm her down. "Oh, you reckon?" She just stabbed a guy, and she's now saying, I'm sorry, do you love me?" You reckon you need to calm her down? I think the time for that's past. Rosa didn't feel completely at ease doing so, but she left her friend alone with the Marquis for a few minutes. Later, she returned with a glass of water laced with valerian root. Guillem had already coaxed Catherine to lie down on her bed while Rosa helped her drink the nightcap. They watched her in silence as she drifted into a fitful sleep. Guillem and Rosa left the room. They didn't speak for a while, both still dazed and shocked by the turn of the events. "Didn't she stab him in the arm? Where's the cut?" It's one of these magical French cuts which goes away. "How is your arm?" "Fine." "Oh, come on, hid the injured arm away from view. There's not a single bloodstain on that cape." "It's not a cape, but I'm going to call it a cape." "Fine, just a scratch." The bleeding hadn't stopped yet. Rosa could tell the cut was deeper than Guillem let on. What is happening? What has gotten into Catherine? Guillem just shrugged with a cold expression of worry on his face. "I wish I knew, Rosa. The state she is in scares me, to be honest." "Scares you? She had fucking blood on her hands when she was scratching a wall, you fucking lunatic." It might be an onset of an episode waiting to happen." Waiting to happen? What do you think that was? Waiting to what the... Oh my God, I dread to think of what he thinks an episode is. Like her sister before, Rosa's mouth tightened. "How dare you say that? She is not crazy." Just want to bring you back to... You remember that scene happened... It was 5 minutes ago. Your mate, Catherine, scratching a wall with her bare hands. Bloody. He loves me not. Were you not there? Not there for that, it's fine. Rosa searched his face for traces of a lie, but it was like a mask contorted by worry. She couldn't tell whether he was lying or telling the truth. "She asked me to protect her from you. Did you hurt her?" "You know I wouldn't. She is unwell. It seems I am the target of her psychotic state. That is all I know. But why?" Stop it, Rosa. It hurts me too, seeing her like this. Please stop questioning me further. I'm going to call for a physician. Please stay with her in the meantime. See that she doesn't harm herself again." For a moment, he met her eyes. Before she could say more, however, he turned around and left. See if his pants have caught fire yet, child. There was nothing she could do about him for now. Rosa left to get a bowl of fresh water and a towel to tend to Catherine's fingers. Catherine had an uneasy sleep while Rosa cleaned her wounds as best as she could. She muttered, squealed, and whimpered like a child. It seemed that she was having a nightmare, but Rosa didn't dare wake her before the physician had arrived. Her fingers are in fucking good state. You'd think there'd be cuts everywhere, but they're not. They just look like they've been mildly sunburned. Instead, she stroked her hair, told her that everything would be all right. She tried to appease the growing confusion of voices in her head. What had happened between Catherine and Guillem? Their relationship was often erratic, but Rosa dismissed the possibility that this was one of their usual fights. Rosa remembered Catherine's face, filled with utter spite at the man. She'd never seen that much hatred in Catherine. After a few moments, Catherine's eyelids fluttered open. She looked around with some confusion, then her gaze settled on Rosa. Tears welled up in her eyes. Rosa? Rosa held her outstretched hand. Her heart broke when she saw Catherine wince. Oh, Rosa, I'm so scared. Everything is such a mess. It's going to be all right, Cath. Don't worry now, just try to sleep some more. No, you don't understand. Catherine tried to sit up, but Rosa pushed her down gently. You need to rest, Cath. I hate him. This is all his fault. She sniffed, but settled down on her pillow once more. When she spoke again, it was a whisper. Rosa, She chewed on her dry, chapped lips for a moment, as if she couldn't get the words out. I don't think I love him anymore. What? A dry sob escaped her, followed by tears rolling down her cheeks. Had Catherine really just said that? But I don't understand this. When I think of him, Her voice cracked. She shuddered under the blanket like an ill breeze had just sprung up in the room. It's like bugs are crawling under my skin. I can't bear to look at him anymore. I just can't. I can't even say his name. Why? Do you remember when exactly you started feeling this way? That night. Rosa winced. Catherine covered her face with her hands. It was a horrible night. Rosa's chest hurt. Was this her fault? She didn't know what she had done, but didn't she do something to her? I'm sorry. Catherine went on like she hadn't heard her. I went to his room. We spent the night together. Rosa waited for Catherine to continue, but the girl stared blankly. She just stopped speaking, as if forgetting she ever spoke at all. Cath, did he hurt you that night? No. Maybe? Catherine shook her head. I don't know. She grabbed her head and sobbed. The grip on Rosa's heart tightened. How can this be? Her eyes drowned in tears. I love him, Rosa, don't I? I remember everything. I love him, I know I do, I'm sure I do. But I hate him too, to the very core. I want to hurt him and punish him for something. I want to snuff out the breath from his throat. But sometimes Catherine's eyes went blank. I just don't care for him at all. Sometimes I feel nothing. Nothing at all. And that scares me more. She laid on the bed quiet now, letting the tears flow out of her eyes without wiping them. I'm going mad, Rosa. Catherine, I am, aren't I? Like my sister? Like my mother. It runs in our blood. They say I am a child of a mad woman. They said I'm going to turn out exactly like her. Rosa stroked her hair and tried to do her best to soothe her, saying that everything would be all right. They were empty words, but she didn't know what else to say. She wanted them to be true so badly, so her friend's sake as well as her own. Was Guillem really the cause of Catherine's confusion and pain? Pangs of guilt pricked her like tiny needles. Or was this her fault? Rubbish, you fool. This is all his fault. I can feel it. We must get to the bottom of this. Yes, Mother. Rosa looked down at her best friend and nodded slightly to herself. Everything will be all right, Catherine, I promise. She would make it all right. Somehow, she had to. The physician arrived shortly, but he did little to help Catherine. Catherine never regained her personality. She remained moody and irritable, breaking out into fits of hysterical laughter or heartbreaking sobs at seemingly random intervals. Guillem and Rosa would take turns to tend to her. Her moods fluctuated, her temper uncontrollable. There were times she begged for attention from Guillem, almost clinging to him in despair, never letting him out of her sight. Other times she couldn't stand his very presence. Soon neither Guillem nor Rosa could console her anymore. She withdrew entirely from the household. She starved herself, stopping coming to the meals, stopped caring for herself. Her manic episodes degraded to long stretches of blank silence. Emptiness ruled her life. Looking at her eyes in those last days, it was like a fire had been snuffed out behind them. Like the star that had been shining through them had imploded. Psych. Is this the chapter where they're just genuinely just like, psych, not really, all of this is fake? Nah, it can't be, it's not a Hollywood movie.